Yeah, it's fantastic to get to speak to you today. As I was just saying, we are obviously fans of your work and have shown your short film in Docs Ireland in our program with them in June of last year, and really thrilled to be showing your feature at the IFI on the 20th of September. And yeah, we just were wanted to have a conversation with you about this really fascinating film. And wondered if maybe the best thing would be if you just sort of told us a little bit about the sort of starting point for the film and what the film is about.
Yes, actually, the starting point of the film is the producer of the film, who is
Ah,
a very good friend of mine. I've been doing short film for a while. I love doing short films, and I never really planned to make a feature film.
okay.
I was thinking, I love short film. This is my career is going to be making short films. And the producer, who's a very good friend of mine, who saw my earlier short films, um, he's a filmmaker and also a producer. And he told me, we went to a screening, and after the screening, he told me, "Oh, Miryam, I really love your films. I think you are ready to make a feature film." And I told him, "No, thank you very much. I'm thinking about this, but I don't think I want to do a feature film." And he said, "Oh, but I would love to produce it." And I said good night, and maybe a few weeks after, he sent me a very beautiful email saying, "Oh, Miryam, I think you should think about it. And I really think that you have something within yourself to make a feature film." And we exchanged emails for about a year about this. And each time I was saying, "No, I don't really think that I can do this." And yeah, after a year, I said to myself, "Okay, maybe I could, maybe I should try." And I wrote a short pitch
Yeah.
for the film, which was Cette Maison. I sent it to him, really hoping that he wouldn't like it, and then it would just stop. And he loved it, and we started to work on it. And the idea behind the film was, since it was going to be my first feature film, I really thought, what is the thing that scares me the most? Because each time that I make a film, I try to find more courage within myself, to
Take another risk.
yeah, exactly. So this was like the biggest risk for myself. So I thought about the death of my cousin and how it had affected her family. And I really wanted to express it in a kind of a love letter, actually, to my cousin and to her mother and to all the women in my family.
Yeah. So it's this extraordinary film that is about this really traumatic episode about the death of your cousin in the 2000s, is that right?
Yeah,
In Quebec, or was it in Connecticut?
it's in the US.
In Connecticut.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a film that is really beautifully kind of out of time in a sense, because we meet a version of her that she didn't get to live, an adult version of her, and a relationship that she didn't get to have with her mother. This really affecting conversation plays out between them. And I'm just curious about like how you went about scripting that. What were the kind of the sort of prompts for developing that? Did you have conversations with your cousin's mother, or how did you sort of develop that script?
Yes, I did have a lot of conversation with a family member, the mother of my cousin, my sister, mother, and I tried to understand how grief affected us through time.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of conversation about what ifs and imagining her in the future and also in the present and in the past. And it was like all not melting, but
Mixed up.
yeah, mixed. Yeah,
Yeah.
time, past, present, and future. We're all like mixed together. And I think that grief affects the temporal reality in a way. We hear, but also there's I was constantly imagining a parallel life for my cousin, because I got I'm really grateful that I got the chance to grow up, and I have a little sister who is close in age with my cousin, and she got to go to her high school graduation and each time that I see my sister, I think of my cousin. It's really strange. So I decided, since cinema allow us the possibility to travel back in time or in future, I decided to imagine her at 20, 25, 26 years old, which she would be, which she would have today. So for me, it was a way to imagine what she could have been, and also it was a way to protect myself while writing the film, because I thought, oh, if I cast a teenager, it's going to be too close. It's going to be very difficult for me to do so.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting what you say about how grief affects our perception of time, or how those two things interplay. And maybe that happens all the more when the person who has died is so young, is a teenager. But I also think what's so fascinating about your depiction of all of this is the, I guess, the staging, or how you have shot the film. So it has both these sort of documentary sequences, I guess, of shot in what we would assume is Haiti, and then these very staged sequences of dialogue between the actors who are playing your cousin and your mother. And even I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about how you sort of stylized those staged sequences, and because they made me think of like some films and filmmakers that I love. Like the film overall made me think of Pedro Costa. Do you know that film Horse Money?
Yeah.
It really evoked that feeling of a dreamlike space. Being sort of ushered into a world that is familiar, but not the one that we kind of recognize as reality. But yeah, I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you developed that style for those scenes.
Sure. When I pitched the first version of the film, I knew that it was not going to be a traditional documentary. Just because the film is very close to who I am as a person, and who my family is. We are very shy people. So I knew that, doing interview and having people sit in front of the camera would have been very difficult for myself and also for them. And the fact that I had those conversations, and I fictionalized them in a way. In a sense, I did that to also protect them and protect myself. So when I would be on set, nothing would be too realistic. We created a set in studio based on some rooms in my aunt's house, in my mom's house. I borrowed a lot of objects from their houses, but it was still a set, like a film set. It was very clear with the DP, the director of photography. We made sure that sometimes we see part of the set, so to create some kind of a distance. And with the art designer also, because we did have the budget to make it more like realistic in a way, but I wanted to keep that distance, and also the way that the actors are interpreting. I don't know how to say that in English. Interpreting.
Is that I'm
I'm not sure.
That's what
are playing the roles. Like it's like they are on at the theater. Like it's
Yes.
very like and it was a way for me to protect myself, to not to be too much drawn into it, and
Yeah.
also for my family actually.
Yeah.
Because I knew they were going to see the film.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting, actually. Just while listening to you talk about that, it reminds me of how I think that idea of self-care while artists are making their work is becoming somewhat more prevalent now. But I think you're the first person I've spoken to where it's occurred to me that the methods that you adopt in order to keep yourself safe and to protect yourself and people who are involved in the film and the project actually feeds into the creative aspect of the filmmaking, and that it actually enriches the project, that those two things don't need to be separate, that they actually are part of the kind of creative impulse. So I think that's really really important. Yeah, and I was going to ask you as well a little bit about shooting on 16 mil. There was another filmmaker who I guess I was thinking of in those in the way that you were describing how the scenes feel almost theatrical. And I was thinking of Daria Martin. Do you know any of her work and some of the and then it occurred to me that you both work in 16 mil, and there's something about those scenes as well that feel really precise and controlled, and I wondered if that was in any way connected to the mechanics of using 16 mil film, that like you do have to be so kind of organized in a way to get all of that to like make your film as you wanted to make on film. So I'm just wondering about your choice about, I mean, you shoot everything. Have you always shot your short films on 16 as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's mainly because when I study in film school and a while ago in 2006 I started, and I think we were one of the last year where the teacher were still refusing anything digital, and they were like, film is here to stay, and that's the only thing I learned at Concordia University. It was working on film, and it gave me some kind of discipline, like really think, because it's expensive, so you really need to think of what you want to shoot, how you want to shoot it. And for Cette Maison, it was very important for me to shoot on film because it's very difficult if you don't have like a very like recent technological things on screen. It's very hard to date the film, to say, okay, that's was shot in the 90s or in the 2000 or etc etc. And for me, I wanted to create a space where time is very you cannot really put a date to things. Because when I did the first version with the editor of the edit of the film, she was like, oh, should we put like years like to situate? And I was like, no, let's not do that. Let's just leave it as it is, like a dream. You don't really know where you are or when you are, and film does that actually, especially 16.
Yeah, in fact, it feels like the only, maybe I'm wrong about, well, no, there's a few different elements that place us in time, but they are they're not sort of prevalent throughout the film. But one of those is this moment which is discussed in the film about the election or the referendum in Quebec about whether to become independent from Canada, and how that referendum, how that kind of the fate of your family sort of hinged on that referendum. And I know I was kind of reading an interview you did recently, and I don't think the film had screened in Quebec yet, and you were sort of describing all of the different sort of perspectives on that referendum and how different kind of communities in Quebec would perceive all of that. And I was just wondering how that has played out.
Yes, it was a very interesting moment when the film was released in Quebec. I would say that I had a few reactions where people were shocked in a way, but very respectful in the conversation that we had, because it's not a point of view that you see a lot in Quebec cinema.
Yeah.
People celebrating Canada on the night of the referendum. I don't think it has been shown in Quebec cinema before, but it was a very interesting conversation, because when you put everything in context, you have to. I always give the example that for my parents, it was not as political as it should have, as it could have been, because they immigrated in Canada in the late 80s, and they didn't know anything about the history of Quebec and Canada. And for them, it was more like being grateful to be in the country that welcomed them. So that scene, I put it there mainly because I don't know if it happened to everybody, but when you're faced with a traumatic event, you kind of go back to the past and try to remake it, or to say, okay, at this point I could have done this, or this could have happened, and the present would be different. And for me, it was very it was really much the referendum, because like in the movie, I explained that if Quebec was like going to be like separated from Canada, we were ready to leave. And if we moved, we would have moved in my cousin's home with my aunt and my cousin. And I always wondered, if we did, maybe what happened to her wouldn't have happened. So
yeah,
that's why it's in the film.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really evocative kind of moment in the film, as is the trip that your cousin, or the trip that you imagine that your cousin makes with your aunt to Haiti, and which isn't something they got to do together. And I really found it so fascinating, this moment they have describing some kind of qualities of like a traditional Haitian home, like all of the trinkets that they have, and how you describe the houses being like museums, and people aren't allowed to sort of touch all of these trinkets. And yeah, I was kind of just interested in asking you a little bit about why that felt important to include.
Yes, I think that while writing or developing the film, I was telling a story about grief, but I realized that it was also a story about identity. I became a bit obsessed with the fact that I went to Haiti many times to visit family or to shoot short films, and I became obsessed with the fact that my cousin when she was alive, she never went to Haiti. So for me, it was very important, like with the film, to have that moment where she go back. Because I think as children of immigrants, we kind of inherited the longing for going back that our parents have, in a way. Me, I have it, and I'm not from. I am from Haiti, but I wasn't born there. But I do have, since I'm a child, I do have that desire to go back to, even if I wasn't born there. And that feeling of going back home, it was very important for me to have that moment with my cousin and her mother. And I really try to pay homage to the culture with the trinkets and also the foods. It's very important in Asian culture. And it was a way for me to paying my respects, actually.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, yeah, I guess I was thinking about a line that repeats in the film about anything being possible, and how at the very start of the film you talk about how this film is relating a tragic story, but also a hopeful one. And I think that degree of anything being possible, and that film and filmmaking creates those kind of possibilities, is what makes this film so moving, but also in its kind of portrait of how the mind kind of creates those possibilities. I'm just thinking scenes where your aunt goes to sleep and those kind of dream, I mean, it is sort of a dream world that we're occupying in your film, and how that kind of the imaginative space of dreaming allows a kind of an escape from grief and possibility for other kind of outcomes and speculative, what ifs, and I just think your film captures that so beautifully. So yeah, so thank you so much, and we're so excited to show your film. And yeah, I wish you could be there for the screening as well.
Me too. Me too. One day.
One day soon, I hope. You're in Canada at the moment?
Yeah, exactly. In Montreal.
And you're going to go to TIFF? Are you showing your new film?
Yes, at TIFF.
Amazing.
This weekend.
And is it is it the world premiere of your new film?
No, it played at the Prismatic Ground in New York in May.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And is it a feature as well?
No, it's a short film. Actually, it's I'm not gonna say, it's a kind of follow-up to Cette Maison, but more focused on time passing and yeah, what do you do after you make a documentary?
Oh, amazing.
Do
you think you'll make a feature again, or do you think you could be talked into it again, or are you happier going back to shorts?
I've been talked into it, so I'm writing another one.
Oh, brilliant. I'm really happy to hear that. Somebody's doing some really good persuading work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, very best of luck with the screening this weekend, and it was so lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Speak to you soon, I hope. Thank you so
Bye.
much again. Bye-bye.